Surveillance footage released out in Georgia, which showed that after election workers kicked poll observers out of the building, they pulled out suitcases filled with ballots that were hidden underneath a table and then spent hours running them through the machine while nobody was around. Now, if that's not a smoking gun, I don't know what is. This is your 2020 election update, and I'm your host, Roman from the Epoch Times. Now let's go through this footage together. So to start with, this footage is from the State Farm Arena in Atlanta. According to witness testimony, this area that we're looking at now is where absentee and military ballots were being tabulated on election night. So we're looking here at about 10 o'clock at night, and as you can see, poll workers are tabulating the votes, and Republican poll observers and the press are standing over there in the corner of the room. Now, according to witness testimony, a lady with blonde braids came out at about this time, and she told everybody that they are going to stop counting, and she also told everyone to leave and to go home. And as you can see, that's exactly what happens. Everybody clears out, including the Republican poll observers and the press. They all leave the room. But 4 people stay behind and keep counting and tabulating well into the night, from basically 10:30 when everybody leaves until 1 a.m. in the morning. And these people are unobserved, unsupervised, and not in public view as required by Georgia state law. And notice who is actually left behind, by the way. There is that lady in purple. There are 2 women in yellow in the back sitting over by the scanners. And then the lady with the blonde braids, the one that told everybody to leave, she also stays behind. So what we're seeing here is that those 2 ladies in yellow, they're just sitting still over there. They're not doing anything because after all, they said that they're going to stop counting. And they are going to wait until all of the witnesses over in that roped off area, the press and the observers, until they leave the room. And after that happens, after everybody's cleared out, then you'll see them start counting again and scanning ballots. Now, what we're about to see here is that at about 11 o'clock at night, when everybody is already gone, they are going to pull suitcases filled with ballots out from underneath a table. This table, the one with the black tablecloth over it, was placed in that room at about 8:22 a.m. in the morning. And it was put there by the same woman with the blonde braids that told everybody to leave. So now think about that. The same person that stayed behind, the same person that cleared the place out of any observers under the pretense that they are going to stop counting, is the same person that put that table there. And as you can see, they are just pulling suitcase after suitcase out from under it. In total, we counted 4 suitcases coming out from underneath that table. So what are those ballots doing there separate from all the other ballots? And why are they being counted only when the place is cleared out from any observers? So according to the testimony that was given in the Georgia election fraud hearing, the machines that they're using can process about 3,000 ballots an hour. And in that room, you have multiple machines, and they're there for 2 hours. So that could be 18,000 ballots which went through, which is pretty much the margin between Joe Biden and President Trump in Georgia. Think about that. Now, this footage was only released about an hour ago at the time of this filming, and we haven't had time to really cull through it yet in detail, so stay tuned for a lot more developments to come. I'm going to throw the link to the full footage in the description box below this video for you to check out for yourself, and I would highly, highly recommend that you do. Now, when I interviewed Trump supporters in Washington, D.C., this is exactly the problem that they had with the potential recounts in Georgia and across the other states. Because if we're just going to recount these potentially fraudulent types of ballots twice, what's the point of a recount? The question is, where did these ballots come from? That's the real question that needs answering. But let's talk a little bit about Georgia's second recount, the one that was requested by the Trump campaign. It was supposed to be finished by last night. However, according to the Secretary of State, Fulton County, which is the most populous county in Georgia, is dragging their feet. And thus far, we haven't heard of any definitive conclusions to the recount. However, yesterday, our investigative journalist who is on the ground in Fulton County, he witnessed something really odd. Boxes of ballots marked official absentee were picked up from the Secretary of State's warehouse by a UPS truck. He caught it all on video. He tried to question the UPS driver about where these boxes of ballots were headed and whether this was standard procedure. And this is where it started to get very interesting, because Georgia's Secretary of State employees began to use cardboard to block the view of the loading dock. So our reporter, he had to whip out his 7-foot monopod to film from the top. It was like a game of cat and mouse. And what he saw was that the driver was loading in dozens of boxes of ballots without scanning them, which is weird because if you don't scan these boxes, how can you establish proper chain of custody, right? So because the driver wouldn't tell him where these ballots were headed to, our reporter decided to follow the truck, and he followed it until the driver stopped to get lunch. And here's a photo of the truck with the ballots in the restaurant parking lot, unattended. Although to be fair, the door to the back area is probably locked. Now here, the driver finally told our reporter that the boxes are going to wherever the labels are addressed to. and then he drove away. Now, this whole episode is very interesting because a few months ago, back in August, UPS made a statement in which they said that state ballots must be postmarked to be considered valid, and only the USPS has lawful postmarking status. Therefore, UPS, FedEx, and other private parties cannot technically be involved in shipping ballots. Now, to be fair, in that statement, they might have been only talking about shipping individual ballots, not boxes of them, although it's not clear. And so we reached out to UPS and we asked them whether it's common for them to handle election material, whether it's common for them to not scan the boxes when they pick them up, and if they don't scan the boxes, how do they establish proper chain of custody? We have yet to hear back though. If you're interested in watching these on-the-ground videos yourself, I'll throw the links to them in the description box that's below this video for you to check out for yourself. And while you're making your way down there to those links, take a moment to smash that like button. We here at the Epoch Times, we don't have our own Dominion voting machines that can manufacture YouTube likes. So we rely on you, the viewers. When you hit that like button that's below this video, you are forcing the YouTube algorithm to share this video out to potentially thousands of more people, letting the truth be known far and wide. Now, by the way, legally, I should probably say that we don't have any evidence that Dominion voting machines can manufacture YouTube likes. However, while we're on that topic, let's discuss Sidney Powell's lawsuit that's happening over in Georgia. Yesterday, a federal appeals court granted an expedited review to Sidney Powell. Well, what does that mean? Well, if you remember, we discussed it a few days ago. Sidney Powell filed a lawsuit in Georgia where she represented about a dozen voters who argued that there was a fraudulent scheme to manipulate the vote count for Joe Biden. And Sidney Powell is attempting to have outside experts come in and examine the Dominion voting machines there. Georgia's election officials, on the other hand, are trying to prevent that from happening. Now, if you want to go deeper into that story, I'm going to put the link to that earlier episode in the top right corner right here for you to check out. Now, over the weekend, the judge that's presiding over Sidney Powell's case, he blocked election officials from wiping clean the Dominion voting machines in 3 Georgia counties. However, that's nice, but Georgia actually has 159 counties in total. And so Sidney Powell is now seeking a statewide order, an order that would prevent anyone in the entire state from wiping their Dominion machines. Now, even though the appeals court granted her this expedited review, it might still take a few days for the appeals court to make their final decision. They still have to read briefs as well as responses, and so a decision might come as early as Sunday. However, I was reading through some of your comments that were below our previous video on this topic, and you guys brought up 2 very good points. The first one is, haven't these machines already been wiped? Because from what I've read, they were actually scheduled to be wiped on November the 30th, which was a few days ago. But perhaps they haven't been yet, because otherwise the case would be moot, right? And then the second point you guys brought up in the comments, which I actually really agree with, is that even if these machines haven't been wiped yet, doesn't this delay in the courts present a perfect opportunity to wipe them clean before any new restraining order comes into effect? Because, I mean, just think about it. If you committed some sort of fraud using these machines, and now you're watching the courts with their slow processes make their way towards you, I can't imagine that the person is just sitting there and not wiping the machines, right, while they still have the chance. So regardless, we'll keep you abreast of any developments as they're coming about in Georgia, and I'll throw the links in the description box below this video about this expedited lawsuit. Now, let's move over to Nevada. 3% of Nevada's mail-in ballots are now in question after a survey found evidence of fraud. What fraud? Well, an audit of 1,440 Nevada mail-in ballots suggests this. 2% of the ballots were cast on behalf of voters who never received a ballot in the mail, and another 1% of mail-in ballots were cast on behalf of voters who said that they did not vote at all. Now, this audit was conducted by a group called the Bayslice and Associates, and it was done on behalf of the legal team representing President Trump. And what they did was that they literally picked up the phone and called the voters who were identified on the mail-in ballots. And that's what they found, that 3% of these mail-in voters either didn't actually vote themselves or they never actually received a ballot in the mail. Now, later today, in a court in Nevada, the Trump legal team will, for the first time, present evidence before a judge in their election lawsuit there. So we'll have to wait and see what comes of it, and we'll let you know by tomorrow. If you'd like to read more about this audit that was conducted in Nevada, we'll throw the link to the article about it in the description box that's below this video. Now let's move over to Arizona. Sidney Powell, who seems to be doing all of the heavy lifting across the entire United States, she filed a 53-page lawsuit in federal court yesterday, alleging that at least 400,000 illegal ballots were counted in Arizona's election, and that Dominion voting system software created security risks and statistical anomalies in the election results. The lawsuit alleges that certain schemes resulted in the unlawful counting of hundreds of thousands of illegal, ineligible, duplicate, or purely fictitious ballots in the state of Arizona. It goes on to say that these collectively add up to multiples of Biden's purported lead in the state. And for your reference, Joe Biden's currently reported lead over President Trump in Arizona is about 10,000 votes. Now, among other things, this lawsuit also alleges that Dominion voting systems violated election laws by having their machines connected to the internet during the election, and which supposedly happened not only in Arizona, but across the entire U.S. Now, this case will, of course, take time to go through the courts, and we'll keep you abreast of any developments as they're happening. If you want to read more about this case, or if you would like to dive into the 53-page lawsuit and go through all of the evidence yourself, we'll throw the links in the description box below this video for you to check out for yourself. Now let's head on over to Wisconsin. Late yesterday evening, President Trump filed a lawsuit against election officials and leaders in Wisconsin. The lawsuit alleges that unlawful and unconstitutional acts were committed by the Wisconsin Elections Commission, the mayors of several large cities, the Secretary of State, as well as the governor. What specific unlawful acts are they referring to? Well, they cite an apparently coordinated effort to push a new form of balloting upon Wisconsin voters. The lawsuit says that regarding the unmanned ballot drop boxes that were spread out throughout Wisconsin, there was no public oversight and accountability protections, such as the opportunity for public watchers. There was no notice to the public regarding how the programs were administered, and there was no uniform chain of custody standards for the ballots. Now, regarding the chain of custody standards, that seems to be a repeating theme throughout these states. Who knows, maybe Wisconsin also had UPS drivers carting boxes of ballots around the state without scanning them. The lawsuit also alleged that election workers in the 5 Wisconsin cities that are mentioned in the lawsuit engaged in the prohibited practice of ballot tampering by manipulating absentee ballot envelope certifications, which is a violation of state law. If you'd like to read more about the details of these unmanned ballot drop boxes, as well as the other allegations in Wisconsin, we'll throw the links in the description box below this video for you to check out for yourself. Now, lastly, we recently had one of our Epoch Times subscribers send us a beautiful testimonial letter. It almost moved me to tears. And what we did was that we took that letter and we turned it into a short, high-quality commercial, and I'd love for you to see it. So, if you haven't already, hit that like button for the YouTube algorithm, subscribe to the channel so you can get this honest news content delivered directly to your YouTube feed. Stay informed, stay free, and enjoy this short video.
I was asking God through prayer, seeking a good news source.